Hello and welcome to Pimbrook Software for Sage 50 Update Technical Checklist. My name is Sharon Foley and I'll be going through the webinar today. Just a little housekeeping, everyone is on mute, so if you do have any questions you can write them in the chat box and we will go through them at the end. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a quick overview of Pimbrook and then we're going to go straight into some pre-installed checks, system checks. Just on your software. And then some software checks. Then I'm going to run through some post-update checks and show you some of the settings on the software that might help you. And then if we'll have some time, hopefully, for some questions at the end. So for those of you who don't know us, there's a little bit about ourselves. So Pembroke was formed of a merger of two business partners, PIMS Business Systems and Pimbrook Software. We currently have over 1,500 customers. We're voted Sage Business Partner of the Year and for the last 4 years. So we're experts in our area, being Sage 1, Sage 50, Sage 200 and Sage Payroll. And we take pride in all our products. We have a strong focus on our customers, and here are some of our testimonials. So Pembroke are truly professional, most efficient and committed to our customer care. Pembroke have been excellent throughout. The backup and support we get from Pembroke is first class, and I find all the staff most helpful, and the product knowledge of customer care is second to one, and we would like to continue this. So straight into it. First of all, I'm going to go through some pre-install system checks on the software. Now, firstly, and I suppose most importantly, you need to make sure that your machines reach the system requirements for your software. If they don't, you will come across some issues when you're doing the install. For example, you might get a prompt that your software, when you're installing, that it doesn't reach certain requirements, but you might be able to continue with the install, but you might have some performance issues down the line. So you really should make sure that your system requirements reach. And again, if you need to get the system requirements, we can send them out to you. So different versions obviously have different system requirements. You must be included within the same domain. Sage will not work across different domains. Sage 50 doesn't like work groups. You need to, when you're doing any installs, it's recommended that you turn off any antivirus, any user account controls, and that you have full admin rights when you're doing the install. And again, we have a list of exclusions after the install for your antivirus that we can add in. We recommend that your firewall ports are opened. And again, if you're using Sage 50 version 25, your ports are 34225. If it's version 24, it's 34224 and so on. But again, it's recommended that you have your ports opened for your services, your Sage 50 services and your gateway controls when they're reading the data. You can also, when you're doing the install, you would recommend that your regional settings are relevant for the companies that you're using. So if you're doing a brand new install for any reason and you have UK settings on your system, it will actually pick it up for the UK VAT. So you need to make sure if you're using it for an Irish company that you have English Ireland and so on. So again, just a couple of important checks. And you can download the software from our website. We can give you access to download straight from there. If it's an older version, you may have a disk, but again, we have most of the software now on our all the software on our website, and you can download. You just need to register to download. Okay, so once you have it installed, then you have some pre-installed Sage checks. So of course, we recommend that you take a backup from within the system, and you need to make sure that you take all your files. And then again, if you've got multiple companies, that you take it for each company. In some cases, you might want to take a data-only backup, and then you can take everything excluding data-only, that down the line, if you wanted to restore, your archives or reports or layouts, you can do this. When you're running the backup, it will prompt you to check your data for errors. And again, at this stage, you need to, if you do have any errors, you need to contact us before doing the upgrade. Some errors can actually be fixed in the versions that they're in. And, if you go up a version and you realize that you've got errors, you might not be able to fix them, and you'll have to send off the data to be fixed, which then you will have downtime and maybe a cost involved in doing that. So it's recommend that you check the errors and maybe contact us at that stage to see what they are. You need to check if you've got any third-party software and if they are compatible. We can, again, I'll show you in the software when we get to that, where you can check if you've got your third-party enabled, and then you can see if there's any, third-party software integrated with it, but you need to check, see if they are compatible if you do any upgrades. You need to check if you're using Sage Drive. Again, if you're using Sage, if they are using Sage Drive, you need to make sure that you have your main machine that is updated, that the remote users are using, and that you actually do all the remote machines when you're doing that upgrade. You need to check where the data is, and especially if you're not doing the backup from within the data and you're copying directories, you need to make sure that you're taking the right data set, that if they've got multiple versions of the system on the PC or on the server, you need to make sure that you are taking the right data set and converting it. So I'll show you where to check where the data is from within the software. Do they have any customized reports? We'd have customers who would have reports who would be on both on the client, and then they might have reports and layouts on the server. So you need to make sure that you have copied both, so each client machine, you need to copy the reports and convert them if they're before version 12. And then on the server, you need to do the same. We would always recommend when you're doing any upgrade that you do it into a new location. And again, this gives you a rollback option, especially if you realize after that they have third-party software, or if you have errors and you haven't checked it straight away, so you can actually roll it back to that point. So it's recommended that you do install it into a new location, so it gives you a bit of a rollback option. Certainly in version 25, version 24 and 25, we recommend that you use UNC path, and preferably with the IP address. It doesn't like map drives anymore. It'll tell you that they can't read the data. So again, we recommend that you use your UNC path, preferably with the IP address. Again, what version the software is on, you need to check. If the data is on an old version, you would recommend that you go up at least 2 versions when you're rolling up the software. So this would be because if you're going through certain versions, there is corruption that can happen if you jump too far, or you could have currency issues if you don't go through version 2010. So we would recommend that you, version 2010 would be version 16. So you recommend that you need to go through at least, we would do it if we were doing it in-house, we would go through every version, so there'd be no issues, but you should go through at least every 2 versions to eliminate any of these issues. So when you have your software checks done, so you do your pre-install checks and your software checks, then when you have the software update done, we recommend that you go in and you actually turn off any automatic updates on your data, that you actually convert any archive data. So just because you've updated the software, you need to update and convert the archive data separately. There's an option to untick allow usage of data, which is gathering information. Again, it can slow the system down if they're limited on space. So you could turn that off. Again, I can show you where you turn that off. If you give any new features, so if you're going up through versions, users won't automatically be given access to the new features. So you need to manually go in and give access to any new features on the system, unless they have full access. And then the list of antivirus software. So we have a list that you can exclude your Sage files and your Sage extensions from your antivirus. And again, anyone who needs that, if they just drop us an email, we can send that on to you. That's no problem. And if you want to check the size of your data, you can remove any temp files within your ACC data folder. The ACC folder is the accounts directory, so you need to be careful when you're removing any files from there. But .s50 extensions are temp files and they can be removed. But if the data is excessive, we can then go in and we can arrange to do a clear and audit trail and clear out invoices, which will save you some space on the system as well. So I'm just going to jump into the software and I'm going to show you some of the features that we have. Okay, so I have my Sage 50 open. So firstly, if I go into help and down to about, okay, within here, we have, it take a couple of minutes to load, but you have your version number. So you need to check the old version of what they're on and what you're going to roll it up to. So again, the latest version at the moment is version 25, and then you have a full build of 0.1, 0.128, and 0.0. So you need to check that you're on the full build of the latest version. If you're not, there will be a patch available for that version. Next, you should check your transaction number. Okay, so you can check easily at any stage your transaction number, which is on the bottom right-hand corner. Again, it's just a demo data set. It's only 48 transactions here. But if you're on version 25, you can have, they recommend that you can have up to 1 million transactions before you need to start clearing it down. But if you're on version 20 or below, 100,000 is the recommended transactions. So if you're looking here at your transactions, headers, splits, and usage, you can see there how many we have, but it's recommended within your invoices, sales orders, and your purchase orders that you have 50,000. Within your customers and suppliers, that is 2,000, that your product records are 20,000, and your project records are 2,000. So when you're doing any upgrades, it's always a good time at that stage, if the data is excessive and you have years of data in there, that we can do a clear out at that stage. So we can convert the data and maybe clear out any history and get rid of any old transactions up to a certain point. So you can see up here then under your program details, you've got your program directory. So that's your local where it's installed. But your data directory, that's the important one. That's the one that you need to make sure that you're copying and that you're converting the right data set. So again, here mine is only local on your C drive, so it's on your network. It should read your UNC path across the network. If you're using any third-party software, you can see down at the bottom here, it's got an SDO. And if it says yes, it means it's switched on. So if it's switched on, you need to check if they are using any third-party software and where it is, how it's linking. Is it linking to the right data set? So again, you need to check your data directory and to make sure that, most importantly, that it's compatible. And if it's not compatible, then you need to obviously talk to the third-party software provider to make sure, you know, they can upgrade their software for it to be compatible. And if you're using Sage Drive, you'll see that information over here. Okay, so you can see you'll get a lot of the information from Help and About. Okay, I don't have it set up here, but it'll tell you which machine is the main site. So you can log into each machine and you can see the main site. It's really important that you check that the data set ID is the same on all machines, especially for the remote users, that they're syncing the right data set. So that number, there'll be a number in here, and that needs to be the same across the board. Okay. So when you're in here, you can actually go in and you can check your data and take your backup. So I'm just going to go into File and Backup. Okay, it does bring you straight into your backup screen. Now here I'm doing a backup of all files. So this is where you can untick and tick what you want to back up. I do recommend that you do take a full system backup at some stage. Maybe it's in 2 parts, or you take a data only. I'm just going to do a data only one now. I would always take the transaction number. So at the bottom 8, you have 48 there. So I'm just going to put it in the file name. That means I know exactly where I'm backing up to, what transaction number it's on, and then wherever you want to back it up to. So at this point, it's going to prompt you to check your data before you take a backup and say yes. And ideal, I have no problems to report on this data, and click OK. So if you do have any reports on errors, warnings, or comments, do let us know before doing backup. As said, in some cases, it's better to fix the errors within that version. Okay, so close and close that, and you can go running through the backup quite quickly. And again, I can go back in then and do a backup of all files if I wanted to, or maybe separate out my reports and layouts. You know, I could have separate report for each section. So Archive data, it's when you take your full system back up and you're bringing it through the versions, you want to restore your archive data as well. So when you restore your archive data, you then need to go in and convert it. And you can do that by going into File and Open and Company Archive. And this is where you have a list of your archive data. So you can see here, I've got a mid-year archive, which was version 23, got a year-end one, which is version 16. So this, at some stage, these have been converted or have not been converted, but they've been transferred over. Now you can click Convert All and let it run, and it will work through each one. Or I can just click on Convert Open here. It'll ask you, it's been found from previous version, do I wish to want to convert now? And I can say yes, and it'll just take a couple of minutes to run through. The archive data is read-only, so it is only for reporting. You can't enter any transactions into it, so you know, you can convert straight from an older version. It takes a couple of minutes to run through, again, depending on the size of your data. You can see there's copying the data files. So like that, when you're taking your backups, just make sure you have your archives included on your backups to bring it forward and restore when you're converting your data up. Okay, so no problems to report. It does do check data at the end to make sure that there is no errors on it, and that is complete. Okay, just gives you a little conversion log at the end. You can log back into it. Oh. And I can print that log for my records, and I can close. And if you go back in now to your file and open your company archive, you can see that it's on the latest version and it's converted. So you can do that for each version. We recommend that you turn off any automatic updates, as I was explaining earlier. You can do that within Help and Software Updates. Now that has moved within version 25. In version 24, it was in Tools, and then there was an option for Internet Options there, and you could turn it off. So within 25, it's in Help. And just make sure that you have I'll check for updates. What you don't want is to have it automatically selected and then there's a version update and you have a client or an end user click an update when you're not prepared for it. No backups, haven't checked that there's third party available. So I'd recommend that you turn that off and you're doing any updates when you're ready to do it and you have everything backed up. Okay. The other thing I was saying to you is that you need to make sure that you give users full access, or well, the relevant users full access or access to the features, any new features. And again, you can do that within settings and down to access rights. Now, I'm in the archive data. It won't let me do it in here, so you just need to make sure that you log back into your current data. So I'm going to File, Open, and Open Company Data to my username and password. And if you go to settings, down to access rights, okay, and I've got my users there. So you can see I've got partial. So you just need to go into edit and any new features. So you can go down through the users and you can see if there's not something that's not ticked, if they should have access to it, you can go in and then give them access to it. So again, you might want to check with the manager or the main user of Sage to see what user should have full access and you can give it to them. Okay. So I'm just going to move on now and see if you have any questions. I can see there's a couple coming through on the panel there. Okay, so the first question is, will the software run? You said if the software reaches its system requirements, will it run? Okay, what I think the question is there is, if you're running the software update and it doesn't reach the system requirements, depending what the system requirements are, it will still run for you. So of course, if you've run out of disk space, no, it won't run. But if it's telling you that the system is required 2 GB of RAM and you don't reach that, it will run, but you may have some performance issues at the end. So it really does depend on what the system requirements are. But it won't let you. Certain system requirements, if it's not reaching them, it won't let you run. Others, like your RAM or your processor, if it's not reaching, it will let you continue, but you will have performance issues. Another question there, can we copy the accounts directory as a backup? Yeah, absolutely. You can copy the directory as a backup. Just when you're doing that, you just need to make sure that you're taking the right directory. In some cases, customers have multiple data sets and old data sets on their system. So if you go into help and about and check the data directory, maybe go back a couple of levels and take the account, take that accounts directory from there. But yes, you can take the accounts directory. You just need to make sure it's the right one. I'm conscious of time there. There's still a couple of questions coming through. Can we put the data on a cloud server? You can. Again, it's not recommended. It's not tested. So we are limited with the support we can give on a cloud server. However, if you have a full version of Windows on the server and you're logging into a server, a virtual machine as such, then you can run it from there. We'd recommend that you are doing it this way. If you're not installing the services on the machine, if it's a cloud server that doesn't allow you to install Windows, no, it won't take it. So it really depends. Give us a call though, or drop us an email, and we can go through the different environments and what is supported. Now we are short on time. I'm going to just put up our details there at the end. If you do have any more questions, you can just drop them on an email to me, and I'll be happy to answer any of them. Okay, thank you for your time today. I hope you found the checklist helpful, and that it should eliminate any upgrading issues that you may have. Okay, I'm going to leave the details there on screen that you can contact us. Thank you.